The first time Renji pinned me to a wall, I told myself it was because he hated me, that the heat in his eyes was pure anger, nothing more. But I still remember how close his breath was to mine, how the space between us vanished until I could feel the steady thrum of his heartbeat against my chest. My pulse went wild, my thoughts scattered, and for one dangerous second, I wanted to close that sliver of space between our lips. I didn't, he didn't, but from that moment, I knew the line between rivalry and desire had already begun to blur. Want to feel every moment of Aki and Renji's explosive journey from rivals to lovers? Subscribe to Cherryboyhearts BL now, and dive into the tension, the heat, and the love story you won't be able to forget. Shibuya always smelled like ambition. Even 30 floors above the streets, I could hear the faint hum of the city, feel the throb of its neon pulse in the glass walls around us. The boardroom was sleek, cold, and expensive, all polished wood and chrome edges. The kind of place where people pretended to smile while sharpening their knives under the table. I sat at one end, my laptop open, notes ready. My brand's logo glowed proudly on the screen. Sato Street, bold and rebellious, just like the clothes I made. I was here to pitch my vision to the biggest investors in Tokyo. This deal could take my designs global. And then he walked in, Renji Takahashi, tailored black suit that probably cost more than my entire collection. Silk tie, hair slicked back in that effortless way that screamed money. Sharp cheekbones, darker eyes. The kind that looked at you like they'd already decided you weren't worth their time. I hated him, or at least that's what I told myself. He slid into the chair opposite mine with the grace of someone who'd been born into power. No rush, no nerves, just pure confidence that the world would bend for him. "Shall we begin?" he said smoothly, his voice low, carrying easily across the table. The meeting started. I gave my pitch clean, direct, passionate. My designs were about youth, movement, rebellion. The streets of Tokyo poured into fabric. Investors nodded, took notes. I felt my pulse settle. I had them. Then Renji spoke. "I see what you're going for, Sato," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But streetwear is messy, unpredictable. Investors want security." And frankly, his gaze swept my outfit. Tailored denim jacket, silver chain, rings on my fingers. "Your style is a little too casual for the global stage." A ripple of quiet laughter ran through the room. My jaw clenched. "Casual sells," I shot back. "Streetwear is culture. People want something real, not another overpriced suit in a showroom." "Overpriced suits," he repeated, his lips curling into a faint smirk. Interesting choice of words. We went back and forth like that, trading blows both verbal and subtle. I could feel the heat in my chest, my hands itching to throw the table over just to wipe that smug look off his face. But every time our eyes locked, there was something else there. Something I didn't want to name. The meeting ended with no clear decision, just tension hanging thick in the air. Investors murmured to each other as they filed out. I gathered my things quickly. I wanted to get out before he... "Leaving so soon, Sato?" I froze. Renji stood by the door, one hand casually in his pocket, the other pushing it open for me. His smile wasn't friendly. It was sharp, dangerous. The elevator was waiting. I stepped inside, pressed the button for the lobby. He followed, leaning against the mirrored wall like he owned the space. The doors slid shut. The air between us shifted, heavier, closer. I could see his reflection watching me. "You've got fire," he said quietly, his voice almost a purr. "But fire burns out fast without control." I turned to him, heat prickling at the back of my neck. "And you think you can teach me control?" He pushed off the wall, closing the distance between us in 2 slow steps. My back hit the cool metal behind me. He planted one hand beside my head, his body angled toward mine, close enough that I caught the faint scent of his cologne. Clean, expensive, with an edge of spice. "Careful, Sato," he murmured, his mouth so close I felt his breath ghost over my cheek. "I eat people like you for breakfast." My pulse hammered in my ears. I told myself it was anger. It wasn't. "You're in my space," I said, my voice lower than I meant it to be. He didn't move back. If anything, he leaned in, his other hand brushing lightly against my hip as if testing how far he could go. Am I? His eyes were locked on mine, dark and unreadable. Funny. You don't seem to be pushing me away. I swallowed hard. The elevator hummed softly, each floor passing too slowly. His gaze flicked down, just for a second, to my mouth. Tell me to move, he said. It wasn't a request. My lips parted, but no words came out. My hand twitched at my side, caught between shoving him and grabbing his tie. The tension was unbearable, thick enough to taste. His thumb brushed the side of my jaw, a deliberate touch that sent heat pooling low in my stomach. I hated him. I wanted him. The elevator dinged. Neither of us moved right away. Finally, he stepped back, straightening his jacket as if nothing had happened. His smirk was still there, but his eyes, there was something sharper in them now. See you around, Sato, he said, walking out into the lobby. I stayed in the elevator for a few seconds longer, breathing hard, my body still buzzing from the heat of him so close. I told myself it was just the adrenaline. I didn't believe it. If hell had a dress code, it would be Renji Takahashi's office. Cold, spotless, every surface glass or steel. Even the air felt expensive, like it had been filtered to keep out anything human. And now I had to work here. 2 days after that elevator moment, the news dropped like a grenade in my inbox. Our investors wanted a joint showcase. Renji's empire and my streetwear label, side by side. They said it was strategic synergy. I said it was a bad idea. They didn't care. So here I was, standing next to him at a long cutting table, the city skyline glittering beyond the glass walls, pretending I wasn't aware of the way his arm brushed mine every time we reached for the same roll of fabric. Your seam placement is sloppy, he said without looking up. His voice was smooth, almost bored, but I caught the faintest curl at the edge of his mouth. My seam placement is deliberate, I shot back. It's called style. You should try it sometime. He finally glanced at me. Sharp, dark eyes that had a way of making my stomach knot. Style without precision is just chaos. And precision without style is just boring. I countered, my hand deliberately grazing his as I reached for the tape measure. His fingers didn't move. He let mine slide against them before I pulled away. We kept at it for hours, measuring, pinning, sketching. The tension between us was thicker than the fabric on the table. Our arguments had a rhythm now. Sharp words, sharper looks, and just enough silence to feel the weight of each other's presence. By the time the rest of the staff left, it was past 10. Only the hum of the city and the low buzz of the lights remained. Renji was at his desk, reviewing the final lineup of designs. I packed up my things, eager to get out before he could start another round. I just reached the door when his voice stopped me. Sato. I turned, hand still on the handle. What? He leaned back in his chair, one ankle resting over his knee, fingers steepled. His tie was loosened, the top button of his shirt undone. Somehow that made him more dangerous. Tell me something, he said, his tone deceptively casual. Do you hate me this much? Because you can't stand wanting me? The words hit like a jolt of electricity. I forced a laugh. Wow, that's a reach even for you. Is it? He stood, moving toward me with slow, deliberate steps. You're always quick with a comeback. Always in my face. Always looking at me like you want to bite me. Bite you? My voice came out tighter than I intended. He stopped a foot away, close enough that the heat from his body reached me. You wouldn't be the first. I rolled my eyes, trying to push past him. He shifted, blocking the door with one arm braced against it. The movement brought him even closer, his chest brushing mine. Move, Takahashi, I said, but it lacked bite. His eyes searched mine, and for a second, neither of us breathed. His scent, that same clean spice I'd caught in the elevator, wrapped around me, making it hard to think. You could just say yes, he murmured, his head tilting slightly, our faces inches apart. Yes, I want you. Yes, I think about you when I shouldn't. Not happening, I said, but my voice cracked halfway through. He noticed. Of course he noticed. His free hand lifted, fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from my forehead. The touch was light, almost teasing, but it sent a rush of heat through me, pooling low in my stomach. I swallowed, acutely aware of how my body was reacting. The thrum in my chest, the tightness in my pants. See, he said softly. This is why I asked. Because right now, you're not looking at me like I'm your rival. You're looking at me like you want to know exactly how I'd touch you if you let me. The words were filth wrapped in velvet, and damn him, part of me wanted to find out. His face was so close now I could see the faint stubble along his jaw, feel his breath mixing with mine. My fingers curled at my sides, fighting the urge to grab his shirt and pull him the rest of the way in. Instead, I shoved at his chest. Not hard, but enough to slip past him and yank the door open. Dream on, I muttered, stepping into the hallway without looking back. But even as I walked away, heart pounding, I knew I was lying. Because the truth was, I'd almost leaned in. By the time I stormed backstage, I was ready to put my fist through a wall. The air smelled like sawdust and stage lights, thick with the hum of preparation. Assistants rushed past carrying racks of clothing. Makeup artists barked orders in rapid Japanese, and somewhere beyond the curtain, the murmur of the pre-show crowd rolled like distant thunder. But none of it mattered. All I could see was the headline flashing across my phone screen. Exclusive. Full design lineup for Takahashi Sato showcase leaked. Every sketch, every piece, every detail we'd kept locked away for months, gone. Out there for every rival brand to pick apart before we even set foot on the runway. I'd barely finished reading before I knew who to blame. And he was waiting for me. Rinji stood near a rack of pressed suits, sleeves rolled to his elbows, scanning a clipboard like the leak hadn't just detonated our entire show. His hair caught the low backstage light, making him look infuriatingly composed. You, I snapped, marching straight for him. He glanced up lazily, as if I were nothing more than an assistant who'd brought the wrong coffee order. Sato, you look tense. You leaked it, didn't you? My voice was low, sharp, cutting through the noise. His brow arched in slow amusement. Why would I sabotage my own showcase? Because you'd rather tank the whole thing than admit we work well together. I stepped in close, heat burning in my chest. You can't stand the thought of sharing credit with me. His smile was faint, dangerous. Or maybe, he said, you're the one who leaked it, so you'd have an excuse to play the victim. The accusation hit hard enough to make my pulse spike. You're unbelievable. And you're predictable, he countered smoothly. You come at me, teeth bared, every time you feel cornered. I'd almost respect it, if it weren't so obvious. My hands curled into fists. Say that again. Oh, he stepped toward me, closing the gap until the world narrowed to just him. His height, his scent, the sharp glint in his eyes. You want me to get closer? I want you to. I didn't get to finish. In one fluid motion, he caught my wrist, spun me back against the wall, and pinned me there. The impact wasn't hard, but the shock of it stole my breath. His body pressed into mine, solid and unyielding. His arm braced beside my head. My trapped wrist thudded lightly against the cool plaster. What the hell, Takahashi? Shoo! His voice was low, rich, curling around the edge of a command. The chaos of the backstage faded, muffled under the sound of my own heartbeat. His cologne wrapped around me again. Clean spice and something darker, more dangerous. I twisted against him, but every movement only made me more aware of the heat radiating between us. My chest brushed his with each breath. My hip fit against his thigh in a way that was far too intimate for two people who were supposed to hate each other. You're so sure it's hate, he murmured, leaning in until his lips hovered just beside my ear. But every time I get close, you freeze. Every time I touch you, you don't. I cut in, my voice tight. Don't think you know me. His lips moved, almost brushing the shell of my ear. I know you want this. The words were a spark to dry tinder. My pulse roared. I hated him for saying it, hated him more because part of me knew it was true. "You're full of yourself," I breathed, but it came out weaker than I wanted. His free hand found my jaw, thumb tracing the edge in a slow, deliberate stroke that made my skin prickle. "Maybe, but tell me, are you full of hate right now, Sato? Or something else?" I swallowed hard, my mind screaming for distance even as my body betrayed me. Leaning, just slightly, into his touch. The air between us was molten, heavy with something that felt far too much like desire. I could feel the faintest brush of his breath against my neck, the tension winding tighter and tighter until I thought it might snap. I should shove him away. I should walk out and never look back. Instead, I stayed pinned, every nerve alive, caught between fury and the aching, reckless urge to close that last inch between us. But he didn't kiss me, and I didn't ask him to. The moment stretched, sharp as glass, until a shout from the stage manager cut through the air. Rinji stepped back slowly, his hands sliding from my jaw like he was reluctant to let go. "You'll think about this later," he said quietly, almost to himself. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me against the wall, breathing hard, my body still buzzing from the heat of him. I hated him, I wanted him, and I was starting to think I wouldn't be able to keep the two apart much longer. The after-party should have been loud, messy, and forgettable. Instead, it was the kind of night that would burn itself into my skin. The showcase had been a success. Against all odds, against every fight we'd had, every leaked design, every near collapse. The crowd loved it. The investors ate it up. Our names were on everyone's lips, side by side. Rinji looked like he'd stepped straight out of one of his own ads. Crisp suit, tie loosened just enough to suggest sin, the corner of his mouth holding that same infuriating half-smile. We ended up on the rooftop bar in Roppongi, the Tokyo skyline stretching out in every direction. Neon lights pulsed in the distance, glass towers shimmered against the night sky, and the city below was a restless sea of headlights and movement. I'd had more sake than I should have. My head was warm, my chest light, the world tinged at the edges with a pleasant blur. Rinji, of course, drank like a man who never lost control. Slow sips, steady gaze, the occasional curl of his lips when I said something sharp. "I'll admit," he said, leaning back in his chair, "you're better at this than I expected." "Is that your version of a compliment?" I asked, raising my glass. "It's the only version you'll get from me," he replied smoothly, clinking his glass against mine. We drank. We traded barbs that slid too easily into laughter. His knee brushed mine under the table, and I told myself it was an accident, even though neither of us moved away. By the time we left, the streets below were slick with rain, reflecting the neon in shimmering fragments. The air was cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of the nearby food stalls and wet asphalt. "You're swaying," Rinji said as we walked. "I'm fine," I muttered, but when my step faltered, his hand caught my elbow, warm, steady, lingering longer than necessary. He didn't let go. The city's noise faded as we turned into quieter streets, the kind lined with small apartment buildings and vending machines glowing in the dark. Rain began again, soft at first, then steadier, beating on his hair, his lashes. By the time we reached my building, I was damp, half-drunk, and far too aware of the way my heart picked up whenever he was close. I fumbled for my keys in the dim hallway, but before I could fit one into the lock, his hand pressed flat against the door beside my head. I turned and found him inches away. This wasn't like the other times. There was no smirk, no lazy provocation. His eyes were darker, sharper, and something in them told me I wasn't walking away untouched tonight. "You're not running this time," he said quietly. I didn't answer, couldn't. My breath was caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. Then his mouth was on mine. The kiss wasn't tentative, it was fierce, hungry, the kind you feel down to your bones. His hand slid into my hair, pulling me closer, while his other arm wrapped around my waist, pinning me to the wall. I kissed him back, and it was reckless, desperate. All the arguments, the stolen glances, the months of fighting each other crashing into this single, unstoppable moment. When we broke for air, he didn't step back. He pressed his forehead to mine, breath ragged, rainwater running down the side of his face. Inside, he murmured, his voice low enough to be dangerous. I unlocked the door with shaking hands, and the moment it closed behind us, we were on each other again. His jacket hit the floor first, then mine. His fingers worked my shirt open with an infuriating slowness, dragging the fabric over my shoulders, his touch leaving trails of heat in its wake. I tugged at his tie, pulling him into another kiss. Messier this time, all teeth and tongue. His hands slid down my back, gripping my hips, pressing me hard against him. The evidence of his arousal matched mine, and it sent a shiver straight through me. We stumbled toward the couch, knocking into the coffee table, not caring about anything except keeping contact. His mouth moved to my neck, lips and teeth finding the sensitive skin just below my ear. I gasped, my hands fisting in his shirt. "Ranji, shut up," he growled, but it came out like a plea. His shirt joined the pile on the floor, revealing a body as precise and deliberate as everything else about him. My hands roamed, mapping the planes of muscle, the warmth of his skin. He pushed me down onto the couch, straddling me, his lips claiming mine again before moving lower, jaw, throat, chest. Each kiss was a brand, each touch a demand I couldn't refuse. When he finally slid his hand lower, over my belt, I arched into his touch without thinking. The sound he made in response, low, rough, went straight to my core. Clothes became an obstacle we tore through, breathless and urgent, until there was nothing between us but heat and skin. The friction was intoxicating, our movements sinking in a rhythm that blurred into something primal. The world narrowed to sensation. The press of his body, the scrape of his stubble against my jaw, the slick heat where we touched, the sounds escaping both of us without restraint. When release came, it was sharp, overwhelming, dragging my voice from me in a way that left no room for pride. We collapsed together, tangled and spent, the rain still pattering softly against the window. His hand rested on my chest, feeling the uneven beat of my heart. I turned my head to look at him, but the words didn't come. Neither of us spoke. There was too much in the silence, the fights, the desire, the fact that this wasn't just about hate anymore. And that terrified me almost as much as it thrilled me. The morning light slipped through the blinds, casting thin golden bars across the tangled sheets of my bed. I woke to warmth pressed against my back, solid, steady, the slow rhythm of Renji's breathing unmistakable. For a few heartbeats, I didn't move, my body still humming with the memory of last night. Renji's weight pinning me against the wall, his mouth both demanding and achingly gentle, the way my own voice cracked with pleasure. My thighs carried a faint ache. My lips felt tender, swollen. And when Renji shifted behind me, his strong arms settling over my waist, my heart stuttered, like it had lost its usual cadence. It was absurd. Renji and I were rivals. For years, we traded barbs in boardrooms and shot glares across showcase stages. So why did lying here, wrapped in his warmth, feel so dangerously? Right? I carefully slipped out from under the covers, the cool air prickling my bare skin. Grabbing my robe, I cinched it tight, trying to anchor myself. Renji didn't stir, just mumbled something into the pillow, his dark hair a mess, his face softer without the sharp suit and smug smirk he usually wore. He looked almost boyish, and I hated how it made my chest tighten. I retreated to the kitchen, the familiar ritual of brewing coffee grounding me. The rich, earthy smell filled the air, but it did little to clear the haze in my head. Last night was a one-time thing, a fluke. Too much alcohol, too much adrenaline from our showcase win. Nothing more. But then Renji appeared in the doorway, shirtless, hair damp from a quick shower, a towel slung low on his hips. I nearly dropped the mug in my hand, my pulse spiking traitorously. He leaned against the doorframe, that familiar smirk just beginning to curl his lips. "Morning. You ran off pretty quick." "I made coffee," I said, forcing my eyes to the counter, away from the way his skin gleamed under the kitchen light. Help yourself. Renji didn't move toward the coffee pot. Instead, he crossed the room, his steps slow and deliberate, until he was close enough for me to feel the heat radiating off him. So we're just pretending last night didn't happen? My jaw tightened, a defensive reflex. It was a mistake. His eyes darkened, a shadow passing through them. That's not what you were saying when you were pulling me closer. Heat flooded my cheeks, memories of my own hands clutching at him flashing unbidden. Before I could snap back, my phone buzzed violently on the counter. I grabbed it, grateful for the distraction. It was the CEO of our joint investor group, his voice sharp and urgent. A competitor had leaked a rumor about our showcase, accusing us of falsifying sales numbers. It was spreading like wildfire online. Within 30 minutes, Renji and I were in a taxi speeding toward headquarters. The silence between us wasn't comfortable. It crackled, heavy with everything we weren't saying. I kept my eyes fixed out the window, watching Tokyo blur past. Sleek office towers, neon signs still glowing faintly in the daylight, the endless stream of pedestrians. My mind churned, caught between the crisis and the lingering memory of Renji's touch. At the building, cameras swarmed us. The press was already circling, hungry for a soundbite. Renji stepped in front of me, his broad frame shielding me from the worst of the flashes. His arm brushed my waist, protective, grounding, and I hated how much I leaned into it. No comment, he told the reporters, his voice firm as he guided me inside. In the boardroom, we faced a gauntlet of investors, PR teams, and lawyers. The only way to kill the rumor was to present a united front. A live-streamed joint press conference to prove our alliance was unbreakable. I stole a glance at Renji across the table. He was in his element, confident, calm, fielding questions with that effortless charm. But every time his gaze slid to me, I felt that same electric jolt from last night, the one that made my pulse stumble. The press conference was grueling, but we held our ground. We played up our friendly competition, flashing practice smiles for the cameras. At one point, Renji's hand brushed my lower back, hidden from view. The warmth of his touch lingered, a quiet burn that stayed with me long after. When it was over, the crisis had been defused. The rumor was losing steam, and our investors were placated. We stepped out into the bright Tokyo afternoon, the sunlight sharp in my eyes. The street was quieter here, a faint breeze carrying the scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor. Renji stopped walking. "Aki." I turned, bracing for one of his usual snide remarks. But his expression was different, raw, unguarded, no trace of his usual smirk. Just a steady, burning intensity. "I've wanted you since the day we met," he said, his voice low but unwavering. "Rival or not, I'm not letting you go." The world seemed to shrink, the hum of traffic fading until it was just us. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. If I let myself, I could still taste last night, the way Renji had kissed me like I was something worth fighting for. And the truth, the one I'd been dodging all morning, was that I didn't want to fight anymore. "You're impossible," I murmured, but my feet were already carrying me closer. Renji's smile was faint, almost tender, like he'd won something far bigger than any business deal. And then I kissed him. It wasn't like last night's desperate, rain-soaked hunger. This was slower, deliberate, but no less intense. A claiming in the open daylight, in front of anyone who happened to glance our way. Renji's hand slid up to cup my jaw, his thumb brushing my cheek. My fingers curled into his shirt, anchoring him to me. When we pulled apart, my lips tingled, and I was breathless. Renji didn't let go of my hand. We started walking again, weaving through Tokyo's bustling streets, past cafes and vendors, the city pulsing around us. But I barely noticed. My focus narrowed to the warm weight of Renji's hand in mine, the brush of his shoulder against my own with every step. Rivals once, lovers now, maybe something more. I glanced at him. "So what happens next?" His smile turned slow, certain. "Now, we stop pretending we're enemies, and we see how far this goes." Heat bloomed in my chest again, but this time, I didn't look away. "Fine, But I'm still beating you at the next showcase. Renji laughed. That rich, genuine sound I'd only heard once before, and it sent a shiver through me. We'll see about that. As we melted into the crowd, hand in hand, the city lights flickering back to life, it felt like something had shifted forever. Enjoyed the story? Don't miss the next one. Subscribe to our channel Cherryboyhearts BL for more steamy, romantic BL tales that will keep your heart racing.